Hi everyone. Let's talk about China. So my name is Mikael. I'm originally from Finland, but I've moved to China in 2004 and been in Asia, mostly in China, ever since. This is me when 10 years ago. I was a huge Kung Fu fanboy, and that was the first reason why I came to Asia. Learn from the true masters, but somewhere along the way realized that doesn't make you money. How many here, hands up, has published their game in China or is considering doing so? That's almost no one. How many is game studio or non-Chinese publisher? All right, that explains. Yeah, China has already become the number one geographical market for mobile games in the world, and it's still growing its importance. So truly hoping that more and more studios and publishers will start to take China seriously. Currently, still most of the game developers outside of China see China more like a headache that they prefer to think maybe next year. So happy to be here today to share some of our experience and insights. When people think about publishing mobile games in China, you often first think all the big numbers, huge gigantic companies like Tencent, Baidu, Alibaba dominating the market. And then it's very easy to get the sort of misconception that you must have that kind of gigantic resources down there in China in order to compete in the market. And I'd like to today bring in a slightly different perspective to the market and show you guys how for some games it's actually possible to succeed with a leaner model with the smaller resources. Few words about us. So I set up the company with my Chinese co-founder around 3 years ago. And so we started building our China publishing sort of technology platform and the distribution model in late 2013. And then 2014, February, we had our first games out in the Chinese Android stores. Until then, we were pretty much like doing things on a startup, bootstrapping resources. And then later along the way, we have gotten a seed funding from a couple of VCs, but still comparatively small resources that we are operating. We are a team still below 30 people. We have offices in Shanghai, Tianjin, and taking care of the localization, marketing, testing, distribution, all the relationships there. And then we have R&D team in Finland, where we are developing our SDK and all the backend technology. And then a couple of satellite offices around the region. And now, during the first 2 years of publishing our handful of games, pretty small portfolio, we actually achieved over 100 million accumulated users on the Chinese Android market. And we are currently distributing through altogether nearly 60 of the largest Android stores. So I think we have successfully proven already that a small company like this is possible to succeed in the market. And I'll show you in a moment how we do it, but first I would sort of like to break a couple of misconceptions about Chinese market that I often hear from the people in the industry. The first one is that China doesn't want your game because there is no official, reliable data available showing the game rankings and other store data from the Android stores in China. So people, when they do their homeworks regarding China, they just look at iTunes or the App Annie data from China App Store. And this is from 2 days ago, screenshots showing the top 30 crossing games in China. And there's only one foreign game there, the Clash Royale from Supercell. All the others are Chinese companies. So when you look at this kind of data, it's very easy to draw the conclusion that Chinese only like Chinese games, and that's why all these Chinese publishers are dominating the top grossing charts there. But that's not true. That's the real reason is much more complicated. Almost half of these games are actually published by Tencent, and it's not because Tencent would be able to create games that are somehow so much better than anybody else's for the Chinese users, or that the monetization mechanics would work so much better for the Chinese consumers. I claim that it's mainly because they have tremendous resources to drive the traffic. They have their WeChat platform, QQ, and their other media platforms. They have enormous user bases. They have huge marketing budgets, and they are, of course, taking their home market very seriously. And the same thing you see NetEase there, and a couple of other big companies. Is their home market. They are putting a lot of marketing resources there. So of course they are doing better than foreign companies who still today, although many say that we are taking China seriously, but still it's just self-publishing on the iOS store, doing the basic localization and just basic user acquisition campaigns without any further marketing in the market. So to prove my point, I'll show you the Android stores. I just check our data. So we are, for our own purposes, we are tracking the biggest Android stores on a weekly basis and see what kind of trends we have there and how our games are doing there. And you can see that over 30% of the top 10 Android stores, most successful titles there are foreign titles. These screenshots are from Alibaba's Aliyun store, standalone games section. This is actually over 1 month old, but I just had to use this because we are on a number one spot there. This is more recent. This is a few weeks old from mobile phone manufacturer Oppo. You guys probably have heard of them. They are selling devices already in Southeast Asia, and recently they have been in news for surpassing Xiaomi on their smartphone sales. A lot of foreign games there. Interesting fact that some of these games, both here and here, are actually pirate versions. Most are legit ones, but there are a couple of pirate ones. But yeah, you can see from here that there's definitely the appetite for foreign games in China. And most of these games haven't been like heavily culturalized. They still have their own graphics, original graphic styles and monetization mechanics. So they haven't been changed all that much. One, there's definitely appetite for foreign games in China. Two, you don't always have to culturalize the game that much. Some games can go with a very little localization. Actually, our hill climb racing is a good example. We did very minimal localization on that. Then another myth is the consolidation of the distribution channels. And ever since we started my games 3 years ago, I've been hearing people, mainly Western people, talking about how the Chinese Android market is consolidating. And yes, there has been a couple of sizable acquisitions, but at the same time, there has been a lot of new stores coming up, getting stronger. And I'm still waiting for the consolidation to happen. We are, like I said, distributing our games across 57 stores. We are still growing the number. And yeah, the Q1 we made over 30 million new downloads for our portfolio, and none of these stores contributed more than 15% of that traffic. And our games like Hill Climb Racing, Cut the Rope Magic, they are consistently in a good positions in those stores. So of course, we don't get that detailed data that we could, put the channels in absolute order, but at least per our experience, I can confidently say that the market is far from being consolidated. So it's still very, very scattered. Recently, the smartphone manufacturers have been growing their importance in the market. So Oppo, Huawei, Vivo, they have been growing. Meizu is also doing pretty well now. And of course, Xiaomi is there. And these channels are not in any kind of order here. I've just listed the names there. But these are our 12 biggest traffic contributors during the Q1. But okay, let's explore a little bit why China is a difficult market for foreign game studios. And a lot of the time when I do these speeches and I tend to focus on the issues and the challenges in China, I go to this kind of Donald Trump mode where I say that I love China, but it doesn't sound like it. But let's try to avoid that this time. So the key issues listed here. The first one is the earning models. So the premium market on the Android simply doesn't exist. So the stores don't even support pay-per download. So everything has to be free to download. So free-to-play games. And then on the Android side, the advertisement is a huge headache. A lot of the biggest stores, they are actually not allowing third-party advertisement SDKs. So, for example, our games and most of the basically everyone I know, they publish their games in Android stores completely without advertisements. So the stores actually, when we submit our games, they will scan the APK, and if they find a third-party ad SDK there, it fails the submission. So they have their own, they have their own billing SDKs. A lot of them, they also have or are developing their advertisement SDKs. But then, at the moment, the way we see it is that most of them are still not worth the integration hassle, at least not for us. So most games, most cases, no advertisement revenues at all. So you are left with the free-to-play games that can monetize with the in-app purchase only. And there's actually not that many games that can do that really successfully. So that narrows down already the scope of the games that can go to the Chinese Android market and make money there. It's changing little by little, and I think in a couple of years there would be a feasible advertisement revenues in place, but just not quite yet. Then the second point is the distribution. So you have these dozens of channels, and you need to cover at least, say, the first dozen. Each of them, they have their own billing SDKs and this and that SDKs that they would require you to integrate, and that then means that you do many integrations, but then you also maintain several different builds of your game to cover the market, and that workload can escalate quite easily there, especially if you want to come up with the frequent updates. Then it's the device base. So you have all these dozens, or some say even hundreds of local Android smartphone brands. So the top 10 smartphone brands in China, Samsung is the only foreign one, all the rest are locals. So when you do your testing outside of China, you probably can't access those devices so easily. Well, any Android developer is already used to supporting a lot of different OS versions and devices, but the real problem comes when you have all those devices and then all these SDKs. So, say I have a new game, and then one of my biggest channel partners is a smartphone manufacturer, and they come up with the new model, and they want to promote my game. It has a new OS version, and then it turns out that the billing SDK crashes with the new OS version, and this kind of things happens on a daily basis. So it can be a real mess, and that's why most of the Chinese publishers, they actually have hundreds of people working on all these technical integrations. Then is the localization, which is a must. The minimum things are you need to do the language localization, use the local billings, then the Facebooks and other Western social medias don't work in China, so you need to find the local replacement or just remove them altogether, then adjust the pricing, and then quite often you would at least need to adjust the instructions on the game. So that's sort of the light way of doing the localization. But then if you want to go heavier, then there's a lot you can do on the honing the monetization designs, and some even go to change the graphics. So all these put together means that it can truly be quite heavy exercise to get your game out in China, and that's the major reason why there are still so few foreign games out there. So in my games, we have developed this kind of lean and mean publishing model for China Android, which we built from the scratch with the idea in mind that we want to make everything as easy and effortless as possible for the game developer. So instead of trying to please the channels by integrating their SDKs and implementing their every single request. We built a model that is all for the developers best. So we have one SDK, which we call, of course, my SDK, and we are using that in all the channels where we publish. So we have our own billing deals directly with China Mobile, Telecom, and Unicom, plus a couple of the online billing methods. Those are all baked into our SDK, and we are using that in all the channels. So as a result, our developer partner only needs to integrate one SDK and just maintain one build for the whole market. So after they have integrated our SDK and implemented localization, they provide us just one APK, and then we are able to create the different channel versions from that. That means that the developers' workload is minimized into so small that practically any studio can do it. We have been working with one-man, two-man studios, and they can take the workload themselves. And when you do the integration yourself, that means that you can keep your source code. You don't need to give that to us. We don't want it. So then you can be sure that you as a developer are in a full control of what happens to your game in China, what kind of versions are out there, and what happens to your source code. But in addition to the ease of the integration and the preparation, then the second most important thing is time to market. So since we don't have to create dozens of different APK versions and spend time on the integrations, we get the games out much faster than anybody else in the Chinese Android market at the moment. So games like Cutthroat Magic, then the Doodle God Blitz that we just published earlier this year. Both games were out in all these over 50 stores and featured just 1 month after we signed the publishing contract with the developer. Just 1 month, and the game is out there, featured, and making money. So that's a huge advantage, because I hear a lot of stories from developers who have in the past published their games in China and spent like 4 to 9 months to get the game out. And then if you spend that long time to get the game out there, and then first month you generate revenue, and then the carrier pays your publisher typically N+2 or N+3 months, and then the publisher pays you maybe 1 month. So it can come to like 9 to 12 months delay before you get your revenues from the day you start working on the project. So it's hugely important to get the games out there fast, in that sense that you will get the revenues faster. And it will also enable the publisher and the developer to work closer, to tap into like local festivals or other promotion opportunities there are, so we can quickly come up with a new version that is addressed for some special needs. Then we have also developed some of the live operations on our SDK, so easy plugins that we can do, like in-app purchase promotions and stuff like that can earn us extra featuring from the channels. And those are actually really powerful. We have been able to increase the daily revenue for all our games with these campaigns by 50 to 80% by running these kind of campaigns. So it can really make a lot of money there. And then since the SDK is our own, and all the game versions are controlled by us, then we can provide all the analytics data in one dashboard available for our developer partners. So you would then, working with us, you would then know on a real time what kind of performance your games are having in China. So Hill Climb Racing, I already mentioned that. It's been doing pretty well. It's a fairly old game already. It's by a Finnish studio called Fingersoft. The game has over 400 million downloads globally. It's been one of the most successful racing game in both iOS and Google Play. Was originally published in early 2012, so it has gone a long way. In my opinion, it's not really a racing game. It's just a fun physics, riding, super simple, fun game. It has now been in the market almost 2 years in China Android, and last year alone in 1 year we got over 57 million downloads just for this one game. And we also worked together with Fingersoft to create the sort of reskin version of the game with a Chinese team. So you can there drive in a Great Wall and in a Shanghai city landscape and with some funny Chinese style vehicles. So we are publishing both versions at the same time. The original is actually doing still a lot better. Probably for every million of downloads we get for the China edition, the original gets 4 million. It has been sticking really well in the Android store rankings, like Tencent Store, the Highland Store. It has been there 1 year already, just on the top 10, top 12, sticking there, and people just love downloading it and playing it. So yeah, with that, I mean, like to conclude that China is, although it's a year of monkey, but China is no more monkey business in that sense that for some games it is indeed possible to get the game out there without huge headache, without huge workload, and actually get good results. So for Hill Climb Racing, after two years of publishing, Fingersoft's investments in terms of their man hours is still measured in tens of thousands of euros, but their revenue share is in millions. So it's definitely a very sweet example case for them. So I'd like to close with that. We are looking for great free-to-play games to publish in both Chinese Android and iOS stores. Please contact us if you want to talk more about the market. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mikael.